from the Indianapolis Combine. It's the Patriots Draft Countdown presented by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. It's Matt Smith along with Mike Dussault. The Combine is rolling on here in Indy. Mike, you're excited about the tight end position today.
I am.
Tell us why.
Well, Mike Vrabel got me excited about it yesterday, Matt, when he was asked about what positions he might be looking at. Everyone wants to talk about the edge position, but I was surprised to hear him say this isn't a stacked tight end class by any means. I mean, I think you have a clear number one in Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon, who's a very athletic player, and I could see him fit for the Patriots, but really looking more at the lower round prospects. Those day two guys, could there be an opportunity for the Patriots to draft a young, athletic tight end, maybe develop him behind Hunter Henry? They have a decision to make on Austin Hooper as well. So I'm intrigued. Max Clare, player from Ohio State, just listening to him a second ago, very athletic, maybe underutilized in that offense, was one guy that stood out to me. So I think especially when we get back from the Combine, Matt, we got to dig a little bit more into these tight ends. I don't think Mike Vrabel brought it up for no reason.
And when you talk tight ends, Mike, are you talking about a traditional tight end, meaning a guy who I heard Mike talk yesterday about the different kind of blocking schemes that they want to use with a tight end? To me, when I hear that sort of takes a guy like Isaiah Likely off the list if you were thinking about, do you want to augment in free agency? So that tells me maybe in the draft they're looking for the more bigger body kind of a guy.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, I wouldn't, still rule out Isaiah Likely. I mean, I think the Patriots have shown over the past few years that they've gotten by without that traditional wide tight end that can really block and get in there. We talk so much about getting Drake May weapons. I see this as an opportunity to get a weapon and to get somebody young that Drake May can develop with and become that safety blanket. We saw Rob Gronkowski. I mean, there's not another Gronk out there. He's very special. He's one of those guys who can block and can run, and can do everything offensively. But I think overall, this is a class that you need talent. And if there's guys on day three that pique your interest, that's what Mike Vrabel said. Seems like every time we're scouting these matchups, there seems to be a couple day two, day three type tight ends that play and contribute. So I'm not picky, but I'd love to see a real athlete get in there.
One of the other people who is going to have a say in who they're drafting and maybe drafting a tight end is the Patriots' new director of college scouting, Tony Kinkela. And you and Evan Lazar had a chance to speak with him earlier in the week.
All right, we're excited to be joined now by Tony Kinkela, the director of college scouting for the Patriots. Tony, thanks for joining us here at the Combine. I know you're busy.
Shoot. Yeah, it's a great week, but great to be here. Appreciate you guys having me and look forward to it.
How many Combines is this for you?
This is number 17 for me.
17.
In all.
And do you still love it?
Yeah, I mean, I get to watch football for a living, so it's hard for that to get old.
How much?
Me at least.
I mean, I know you guys have done all the work with the scouting, and you get here and you get to do the medicals and all that, but is the most valuable part getting to sit down in a room with these guys and really get a sense of them? Yeah,
I would say so. It's we do so much work, August, September through the season, into December, All-Star games, things like that. And for a lot of these guys, it's our first opportunity to sit down with them and spend a little bit of time with them after hearing so much about them. So it's it's cool to hear their story and their words, and where they're from, and what they're about, and what they're excited for, and where they can grow, and just to kind of compare what we know about them, what we think we know about them, and then you get to hear it in their words.
Yeah.
Obviously, the team on the field has been in the Super Bowl, have had a great playoff run, but you guys have been working, on the college side, and it's not like you guys have been, 5 weeks behind, I'm sure. So can you just tell everybody what you guys have kind of been doing, going all the way back to the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, and all that kind of stuff?
January was a lot of fun, and it was a really unique experience. Obviously busy with the different All-Star games, evaluating players on the field through practice and things like that, and getting an opportunity. We would get an opportunity to sit down with guys who went to those All-Star games, and interview them too, and so spend some time with them. So it's another touch point. It's another opportunity to get with those guys. I say it was a unique experience. It was really cool because our college staff was together a lot of the month, and then obviously the success we were having as a team. We were all, as a college staff, we were all together. We had a room at the hotel we were in Orlando when we beat the Texans, and so that was a lot of fun. We were iced in Dallas for the East-West game, couldn't go anywhere. We were in a room together for, watching the Broncos game on TV, and so it was really cool. One, the excitement of what we were about to do. We were doing our work for the team on the college side. We weren't with the team. There's, a lot of times we're in one place, the team's in another. But to be all together as a college staff was really cool and really rewarding. All of the work we put in, all of the work the team puts in to realize that success and those sorts of things. So it was a lot of fun, something I'll remember.
That is really cool. I figure you guys might not have been able to be there at all the playoff games that you do in your work. so you guys at least got to watch it together and celebrate together. That's really cool.
Yep.
The other question I just wanted to ask you about was Elliot had mentioned yesterday that you guys were maybe a week behind in terms of the meetings on the draft side because you guys were in the Super Bowl. Good excuse.
Yeah.
And just what were those meetings like once you guys got home and were able to have them?
Yeah, great problems to have. Having, we were supposed to start actually a week earlier, and then obviously had to push things back. So it was, still really productive. It was just January and then into February. It felt like it was just one day to the next, just trying to keep your head above water in some sense. But our guys did a great job doing the work through the fall to be prepared. We had a good first round of meetings in December. We did kind of laid some of the groundwork on guys. Continued that through the All-Star games and then into February. And February is where we really like to get together, talk about the person, talk about the player, where we kind of see their fit for our team, where we see their value coming initially in the draft, and just get an initial kind of set for us before heading into the combine and pro days, and then into April as we head towards the draft.
You got great contributions from this year's rookie class. Mm-hmm. Were there any of those guys that made a real impression here at the combine? Maybe something that stood out to you?
The one guy, and I've got a lot of experience being out west for a lot of my career, right? Craig Woodson. He's a guy that I followed for a long time. Back to Cal, he's overcome some things, had a knee injury he overcame, and just really grew to respect who he was as a person first, the type of work ethic he had, the type of character he had, the type of leadership he had, the consistency, and I thought all of that showed in his first year, the ability to play so many snaps for us, to continue to improve the playoff run. I thought he played really well down the stretch.
That's what I was going to just say. It's got to be really satisfying to see.
Yeah.
He played a lot of snaps and, was getting experience, but then it felt like down the stretch, he's making plays all over the place.
Yeah, it's really, as a scout, as a personnel guy, it's really rewarding when those types of guys, taking Craig in the 4th round and to see it. To see him have the first year. Now we got to go build upon it, of course, and all those sorts of things. But can't say I was surprised just because of the type of person that Greg is.
Yeah. You must have had an eye on Kyle Williams, I assume, too, being a Coug and all that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Went to Washington State, so certainly pull for those guys, and it was really cool to see Kyle's growth in that last year at Washington State, and then in this year, and excited about what he's doing and where he's going and what he's got a chance to do going forward too.
Yeah, I remember seeing him down at the Senior Bowl, and they go in alphabetical order in some of the drills, and he was always the last one in his line to go one-on-ones, and so but then you got to stay to the end, because he was doing some great things. You mentioned building on last year and all that kind of stuff. Just wanted to ask you just generally about this year's draft class, and what do you kind of see as sort of the strengths of the class this year?
Yeah, every draft class is unique. Some years you're going to have better. You'll be better in different spots, and that's what I really enjoy about the process. Is it's a new year every year. I think there's a lot of intrigue and intriguing players at the edge position. Tackle, I would say it's still a little unsettled, but you got a lot of talent and a lot of variation in terms of who the players are and their skill sets and their abilities. Wide receiver, you could kind of say the same thing. So, some talented guys, some bigger bodies, some smaller, quicker. Types of playmakers, but edge, I would say, definitely stands out as a player, as a position with, players with a lot of talent, a lot of ability to get after the passer, and so that's certainly exciting to dig into.
How much does it change from your perspective picking this low in the draft? Are you guys, when you're at the top, it's all right, it's going to be one of these probably 3 guys. And now, Evan and I'm blasting mock drafts, all right, who are the guys that are kind of going to be in this area and who might fall through the cracks? I imagine you have to game that stuff out a lot.
Yeah, you do. There's so much out of your control. You've got 30 picks before you, and, obviously we can move around and do different things. But, there's going to be a number of players that we've watched, that we like, that we think are really good players that would help us, that we know are probably won't be there by the time we're making our first selection. Again, good problems to have. We're hoping to pick that, down in that range more often than not, certainly. But yeah, that's just it's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's probably not the word. It's just it is what it is. You just know it's going to be happening, and you have to adjust maybe. Who's going to be in play for you, and that continues to gain clarity, I would say, as we get closer into April and have a better idea of who's going to be there and who might be around when we're picking first.
The other thing that Elliot said when we were talking to him that I didn't think about that he kind of shed some light on was, you guys were picking 36 last year in the second round. So even though it's like, you don't have that high pick in the first round, you still kind of had to scout this same cluster of players for 36. But does it change the fact that there's going to be a one, next to the name still, that it's a first round pick versus a second, or is it kind of the same thing?
No, I think it's the same thing, because whether it's our first pick or our second, you're trying to find good players who will contribute, to your program and be good people and make good decisions and all those sorts of things. So whether it's your first, second, fourth, seventh pick, whatever it is, we're just trying to build a team of good people, of good players, guys who are going to contribute, be about the right things, and help us to continue to get better.
Yeah, one more for me. Just watching this team this year, it was like, we heard what play style Vrabel wanted for the team, and it just jumped off the field. And now it's like when we come to these things and we're watching players, and like, that's a Vrabel guy. I mean, these are guys who just play with their hair on fire.
Yep.
It seems like from a scouting perspective, it's very clearly defined from the top what you guys are looking for.
Coach Vrabel's been awesome, and his staff has been great, really good people to work for. The clarity they provide, the types of, the people that they want to be about. I think that showed in our team this year. It's just, Coach Vrabel and just the identity that he sets and that he demands in our program is awesome. It helps our job as scouts to understand what we want to be about. Obviously, you want to evaluate every player for who they are. But you do see those types of guys, and they stand out and say, I really like that guy. He'd fit well with us.
Yeah, I just a continuity, kind of piggybacking off of that. Coach McDaniel's going to be back as the OC. Zach Korb now the defensive coordinator. How much does that help now to have the same exact coaching staff 2 years in a row along those same lines? Yeah,
in my opinion, it's big. And again, just building relationships with our staff. We're a lot of times running parallel of each other, right? Coaches are knee-deep in the season with the team and with the players and week to week and all those sorts of things, while we're off and visiting different places across the country and doing our thing. And so it's fun for me to come together, get an opportunity to be around these guys a little bit more, the coaching staff, work with them, because they do so much for us throughout the year. We really appreciate their perspective. It's good to hear what they think about the groups and players and things like that. And so just excited to dig in with them. It's great to be able to get to know them on a more personal level for a second year. And the better we know each other, I think the better we're going to work together.
Just awesome. A great group of guys that coach. Yeah. We've get 10, 15 minutes with them once a week, but they're all just great guys. Yeah. I think that this is one of the best, easiest to talk to coaching staffs that we've worked with, which is really cool. It's been a great group. Just continue to be more and more excited about who we are, what we want to be about, and the direction we're going, and it's on us to continue to do the work to try and get there.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, Tony, thank you so much for taking the time.
We really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. This was fun. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it, guys.
Anytime.
Sure. Yep. That's Tony Kinkela. Thanks, everybody.
Mike, I find Tony's kind of a bright kid, refreshing, to hear his a lot of experience in that position. So he's a new person to be part of the decision-making with the Patriots. I know there's a position today that has you intrigued, that if you look at it, when you go, well, really, where's the need match up with what's going on? But that's defensive back.
Yeah.
Do you see that as a position that might intrigue the Patriots?
Well, I think start with the safety position, and I think you got to mention Caleb Downs, who by many accounts is maybe the best player in this whole draft.
A lot of people are saying that, right?
Yeah, but he spoke earlier at the podium, talked about Matt Patricia and the impact that Matt Patricia had on him, and overall, seeing the game from a higher level, understanding why they're doing things and how he could take things away from certain offenses. So Jalen Hawkins is a free agent. Could see him coming back for sure. Seemed to blossom last year in a starting role. But you look then, Del Pettis is your third safety, kind of more of a special teams guy. So even if you were to bring back Jalen Hawkins, is there still a need maybe to continue to pad that group and maybe try to find, I think both the guys they have, and Craig Woodson came on, can cover on the back end. So it gives you some flexibility that maybe you want to find one of those kind of dime linebacker safety types later in the draft. I don't see safety as a huge need. I mean, I think I'd be okay with Hawkins, but I do think we'll see what happens in free agency. That's a starting hole. If they don't fill it with Hawkins, they're going to have to fill it with somebody. Then on the cornerbacks, you like it. I mean, you got Christian Gonzalez is the focus this year, right, Mal?
No question.
They got to figure out how to sign him.
Priority number one, wouldn't you say?
Right, and Marcus Jones in the slot signed an extension last year, had an outstanding year, not only as a punt returner, but making plays on the ball, making plays in the backfield. And then you look at Carlton Davis, who really came on in the playoffs, had a couple interceptions in that Houston game. But he's 29, a little bit older. you want to pad some depth in there. We had a lot of times this year where Carlton Davis is going over to the booth there, going over to the blue tent for a second, and then he's back in the game. So I think they dodged some bullets this year with Carlton Davis, with some little bumps and bruises along the way. But another position where you're thinking more depth. So not, this is, a position like edge or tight end or wide receiver that you're really locked in on here. But I do think these are kind of sneaky needs at the end where you want to pad your depth and continue to develop those players.
Another analyst that we had earlier on in the week that joined Mike and Evan from the NFL Network was a gentleman by the name of Marc Ross.
All right, we're excited now to be joined by Marc Ross from NFL Network, draft analyst. Marc, thanks for sitting down with us here.
My pleasure.
We're in a little bit of a different position this year. We've been picking up at the top for a while, and now suddenly we're back down at 31. How do you see this draft playing out? I feel like at that point you kind of wait and see maybe who falls through the cracks.
Yeah. Speaking of your flip, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit. Our preseason predictions and shows, we used to talk about what team can make the jump. I said the Patriots are going to flip their record.
All right.
I said it's on record. It's there. I said they're going to flip their record. Didn't think you go to the Super Bowl, but things fell the right way. But, this week for the Patriots, just, last year was just – all right, what are we doing? Like, none of these players are on the team, right? And then you go crush it in free agency. You went and crushed it in the draft. And now you built that foundation. And now it's, okay, we're in a completely different place now. What do we do here? But, be a cautionary tale where Washington last year was in this position where their timetable got accelerated so fast, like it was almost the worst thing they could have done, making it to the NFC Championship game. Because then they went all in on this, like, let's go do it now, and then it kind of fell apart. So, I think the Patriots have a better foundation, a lot more players than the Commanders had, but the same kind of theme of, okay, we still got to be smart the way we're building this and make sure we identify the right players who are going to get us to win it now as opposed to just getting there.
No, I love that perspective because we've had debates on our shows because a couple months ago I said, well, we don't want to be the Commanders, right? We don't want to push the chips in too quickly. But then the Super Bowl happens and the playoff run happens, and I'm like, man, if they get Max Crosby, they'll be right back here. But what is just sort of your perspective there on how to kind of slowly continue to build this thing while recognizing how much success that they had last year?
Yeah, well, you still have to. I mean, if you have money, you got to spend it. You just can't sit there and not. So if there's certain players out there, you still have to be smart with the money. Smart. This is like last year with the freeze. Y'all had the money, you had to spend it, and you spent it wisely. Okay. Bill Williams and Carl, you went through the whole list. No, this makes sense. It wasn't like, why did they do that? It all made sense. So, again, I think with that approach with Elliott and Vrabel and how they're going to approach it is still smartly making these decisions of how to allocate the money or signing your own guys, and then in the draft as well of, okay, we know how to identify playmakers, and let's just continue doing that.
Yeah, speaking of playmakers, they need at edge is obvious. Mm-hmm. Elliott Wolf talked about it yesterday. Strong draft class. When you look at the play style that Mike Vrabel's looking for and you look at this edge class, are there any guys that you see, maybe that slipped through the cracks down there in the 30s that might fit?
Yeah, that's it's an intriguing group there, and I think, Mesidor from Miami because he's older. Like, if you just watched him, you didn't know how old he was. Like, man, this is the best edge rusher in the draft. Now you've got to factor in that other stuff. So, of the guys there, of course, we've heard about Bain and Bailey and those dudes, but Mesidor could be that one that gets down there because of the age factor and teams that'll be scared away. But, he's a monster. Watching those two guys play, you understood why Miami made it to the national championship game once I started watching film on them. So, of those top guys, the younger ones, not as many red flags, he's the one that could creep down there.
When you have a part of the draft class that's that deep, like edge rusher, and it does feel like this year it's kind of a flavors thing too, where there's some guys that are 265 and there's some guys that are 240. Does that kind of make it almost easier in a way because you kind of know what your fit is and sort of what the guy you want?
Yeah, for sure. And that's where your scouting staff and your coaching staff have to be on that one accord to know, this is the type of players that fit us. And you see a lot of the teams with success, let's say a Baltimore's of the world, where those guys have been together, this is their system. Now we just got to find those players that we know fit, as opposed to, okay, a new coaching staff, a new scouting. Well, what are we really looking for? What are we identifying here? And, with the Giants, it was always, we just worked hand in hand of, all right, there's no guesswork where this guy is not going to fit us. We're not going to bring in a, X player that has these measurables or this skill set because we know he doesn't fit. Now, if the talent is super supreme, you better find a way to get them on your squad. So that's why it's so important for those guys to work together to know what a Patriot player is.
Is there any position group in this draft class you think may be underrated? Maybe there's some value, specifically in day 2, maybe into day 3. I know running back's often a group that's where you take those flyers, but is there another position group you feel like is a little deeper maybe than people are talking
I think
about?
the edge group, because it is so, as you mentioned, the differences in those guys, so you could see a lot of fluctuation of 32 teams will have let's say the top 10 ranked completely different, whereas in years past, there's 1 or 2 dudes, are really, those are there's the Myles Garrett, there's the, that guy, whereas this year that depth will go with the edge rushers because they are so different, and I think there's a really good group of good players. When you watch players, you want to say, that's a good player, not, well, I know he ran fast, but he's not productive. You never want that. So I think there's a really good group of those edge guys. Like, he's a good player, and let's see if he's our guy.
You mentioned your time with the Giants, which I'll let go. Patriots people are not really too thrilled about that, but we'll let that one go. Just, you hear a lot about the Combine, and that the stuff that happens on the field at Lucas Oil at the end of the week is kind of not the real Combine, right? All the stuff behind the scenes is that true? Like, would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, well, different teams place different value on what goes on this week. And, all 32 teams ranked different. It's all 32 ranked what the importance is. To now, teams aren't even here. The Sean McVay situation there, like, we're not going, and they won. It's success. So other teams say, well, we can do that as well, whereas other teams only send half their staff. And for the most part, people don't know that the scouts have been on the road since August, July, end of July, August, when they put 90% of the work into what goes on. They should be anyway. And then this after season portion of it should be massaging all of this. So your foundation should be built whenever you have your first draft meetings before the Combine of, here's our draft board, here are the guys we identify, this is all the work our scouts have been busting their butts all year long to do. And now don't have a coach see somebody run a 40 and change what we got going on here. Right. That's when you start getting into mistakes. When the after-season process, you start inventing players or crushing players. To me, it's really about always the success of the best teams identify the really good players on the field and let this process massage the rest.
Just one more for you, Marc. Is there a player or two that you just love in this draft? Couple guys that just your favorite guys?
Yeah, every year I have a favorite and stuff. This year it's Mason Thomas from Oklahoma. You talk about Mesidor being this guy. When I started to watch him, he was just fun to watch. There's certain ones you evaluate and you just keep watching them just because you want to see them do fun stuff and entertaining stuff. So a little bit undersized, but compare Robert Mathis. Some of you remember Robert Mathis from here with the Colts, terrorized Joe a little bit. Like that same kind of build, that same sort of explosiveness, just much tougher, stronger, more powerful for their size. So I think he's a guy down there as well that. That's a Patriot type. That's a Vrabel type player.
Pop for me too.
I think we're all on the same page there. You mentioned the coaches kind of coming in and changing the scouting and all that. How often? Because we just kind of nerd out and sit here and talk about prospects all day long and argue. How much does that actually happen behind the scenes, that you guys are just in a meeting room, and somebody's standing on the table from somebody, and you're kind of going back and forth?
All coaches aren't created the same. All scouts aren't created the same. All working relationships aren't the same. So that's why, again, you have to have those relationships with your coaches, and your DB coach may know that, like, oh, cool, I know this is where's your O-line coach in your office every day. Mark, hey, what about, can I get my guy up? Can we get? So that's a real thing where either in the meeting or behind the scenes, guys are fighting and lobbying for their players because it's a natural inclination. Like, I want more players. That's natural for coaches. I always understood, I get it, but we're trying to do what's best for the team and get the value for the team, not just your certain position. And the best teams that do it, they know that relationship and how to navigate that.
Awesome. Well, Marc, thank you so much for sitting down with us. Enjoy the rest of the Combine.
Marc, appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, Deuce, what's on the docket as far as tomorrow? What are the things that might catch your eye as far as the Combine is concerned tomorrow?
I think it's everybody's favorite day, maybe, the wide receivers and the quarterbacks. Not so much the quarterbacks for us anymore, but we're always looking for those wide receivers. And, as Mike Vrabel said here, you're not going to get that number one wide receiver in free agency. It's very hard to thread that needle. You've got to continue to draft these guys and develop them. So, a guy like KC Concepcion is a big name out there around that part of the draft where the Patriots will be picking. Explosive, dynamic player that maybe could really add something to the offense. So, we wouldn't be doing our job if we weren't all over the wide receivers tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to those.
That's great. That's it for this edition of the Patriots Draft Countdown presented by Bud Light. Stay with us as content continues to roll down the pike from the Combine here in Indianapolis.